All right, well, we're going to get down to Texas right now, and our guest, author and parent of a Division I and Division III NCAA football player, Ray Grasshoff. Ray, how you doing tonight? Thanks so much for joining us to talk about your book.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. I'm doing great.
All right, well, I'm going to get the first question to you, and obviously to me, looking over your Q&A and going through the press kit, I think the second question in the Q&A is probably the most telling for most high school athletes and their parents, and obviously you addressed with them the only way that they're really ever going to know if they really have a chance to play college football and even the slimmest of possible chance to go and play at any level professionally. And talk a little bit about that realization for you first and for your son.
Sure. Yeah, everybody, you want to think if you're a parent, you see your son play, and, it's awfully hard to try to be objective about it. Everybody wants to be. You think you are. Everybody's telling you great things. In high school, everybody's talking about how good you are, and if you make a mistake on the field, nobody says too much about that. We're always looking for the positive things, and that's what you hear. So if you really want to get objective information, really the best source of it is your high school coach. Your coach has seen you play. He's seen a lot of other people play, so he kind of knows where you fit in that range of players. And so he's probably got, the best picture. And, hopefully he's also familiar with college coaches and what they're looking for. So he generally, based on all those things put together, will have the best objective view of what your prospects are in college football. Now, that means that not everybody's going to be a Division I football player.
Right.
No coach is going to tell everybody that, hopefully, if he's, being straight.
He's a good coach if he has morals and standards.
Correct. But now high school coaches have also told me that if you want to play college football, you can. I mean, almost everybody, Division III teams in particular, they take a lot of players. You can be on a team. That doesn't mean that you're going to be a starter.
Right.
But you certainly have opportunities to continue your playing career in college.
Right. NAIA also, you can go to college in Canada if you want to play American football. There's so many ways to go and play at the college level. And now your third statement, really quick before I get it off to my co-host, your third question. We like to say if you're good enough, we'll find you, because that's our job as scouts and researchers on this process. But you say if you're good enough, colleges will find you, and that's a myth that you debunk. And we have to partially agree with that, because more and more college coaches, because of the proliferation of Internet information, which you talk about, have to turn to services like us to find out more and more about players from different regions of the country where they may not have been rated a 5-star or a 4-star or 3-star max preps or national underclassmen athlete. Just want to get your opinion on that before I pass you on to my other co-hosts.
Sure. Well, that's exactly right. I mean, back in the day, which back in the day wasn't that long ago for many of us, but
right.
Colleges, there was, one main route to finding college football players, and that would be the college coach, hearing something about a player and going to scout that player. Nowadays you have the Internet, you have so many communication paths that are open electronically. Players put their own information online. You have, all sorts of scouting services, those that players pay for, those that fans pay for, and that sort of thing. There's just so much information about there about all sorts of players. And obviously, if you're a coach for a college team, you cannot visit every one of those schools where those high school players are. So more and more college coaches have told me they're depending on independent consultants that they pay, that is the colleges pay, to provide them information about prospects in, schools across the land. Of course, there are some that are specialized in particular regions of the country as well. So they depend on those quite heavily, and I was kind of surprised to learn that.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to go down to line 4, and our colleague from Consensus Draft Services, where several of us work and pitch in as scouts as well, but he's our regional director in the Midwest region, Bill Carroll. Bill, I know you've got, we all know you played a little bit at Norfolk State, and then you chose a military career before you finished your education and went into coaching, but I know there was a process for you as well.
Yes. Well, as soon pointed out, anyone can find a place to play if they want to play badly enough, and I played badly enough, as anyone who saw me could certainly vouch. But more to the point, I think an interesting point was made. The person who cut my hair has a son who's in high school who's going through the recruitment process, and he buttonholed me 8 ways till Sunday, about this and about that, and, Iowa said this, and University of Illinois said that, and what should we ask, and what should we do, and I'm sure when people find out what you've done and what you've been through, you must be buttonholed pretty severely as well. What are the questions that parents, and I guess even prospects themselves, ask you most often, and what sort of 3 to 5 pieces of advice do you find yourself giving over and over again?
Well, I think one thing, I don't, it's funny, I don't get that many questions, I get statements. One of them is, hey, my son he's got a letter from Notre Dame, he got a letter from, Boston College, he got a letter from UCLA. That's really great, isn't it? And that is good, but only to a certain extent, because getting a letter only means that you're on the radar screen.
You're on a watch list.
I'm sorry, or a watch list, yeah, of some
you're
kind.
On a watch list.
Yes, and so, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be recruited, because when a college starts out looking at a new class of players, they might have 1,000 or 1,500 names on this list that they send a form letter to and a questionnaire.
Sometimes more.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just kind of an average number, I think, from what I've found out. But so that's a good basic first step. Anytime you get a questionnaire, you need to fill it out and return it, because that ensures that college has that information about you. It's a good starting point for when they do want to follow up with you. I mean, if they do, and hopefully they will. Now, going beyond that, one good way to measure how well you're doing at a particular school, I mean, how much interest they show depends on the quality of the contact they have with you. If you just get form letters by the time you become a senior and you're still getting form letters, that tends to indicate, well, they're probably not all that interested in you. But if you get phone calls, if you get emails from a particular coach, that sort of thing, that's a higher quality type of communication, you can measure their interest by thinking about that, by looking at that. So I think that's something that a lot of people, I guess it's common sense in some way, but when you're just first starting out and you get those letters up front, people tend to probably think a little bit too much of them than they should. So I would think that's kind of something to be aware of.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to go on to the Columbus, Ohio area and bring in Don Stokes, our former world's greatest street football quarterback from New York City. Don, I know you. This is a topic that is very close to your heart for a lot of reasons.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Hey, thanks for joining us, Ray.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Hey, I have a couple of questions. As Bill constantly points out, I did play some ball, and also I played in high school. The question I have is, I graduated about 31 years ago, so the process of recruiting is a lot different than what it is now. What can you recommend as far as what high school students can do now to make their highlights look a lot better as far as what they're showing to the general public? I mean, do they just present the entire game film or just the highlight package, or what exactly can they do now?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things to point out there. One of them is that, if you start too early doing that sort of thing, if you're, say, a sophomore in high school, and all of a sudden, you might think, hey, I'm doing pretty good for a sophomore, I'm looking really good out there, and you start sending a highlight tape or video to colleges, you might tell them you're a sophomore, and it might look good for a sophomore, but they're used to seeing seniors. So even if they know in their brain that, hey, this is just a sophomore, sometimes it doesn't, just psychologically this doesn't look as good as the seniors I'm used to looking at. So they tend not maybe to pay as much attention to you. Also, if you're a sophomore and say your 40 time, it's a little bit slower than it will be when you're a senior. Well, all of a sudden you send that 40 time out, it gets stuck in all sorts of data sets, and it's really hard to replace that score, that time, once you get a faster one. We found that out. So I guess one key element is it's probably not a good idea to start too early with sending out the video. Now, it's a good idea to send out highlight video, but a lot of schools will also, at some point, if they are interested in you, they want to see a whole game tape. Because if you're playing, you just send a highlight film and, it has 25 plays on it that you did very well. Well, that's great, but, 25 plays out of a whole season, what were you doing the rest of those plays? That's what they're going to wonder about. They want to see you when, during a whole game and how you are, not just on the 25 best plays you had in the season. So if they are interested, they're probably going to want a game tape at some point. In fact, many of them have told me that they don't offer any scholarships without at least seeing a game tape. And another thing is a lot of coaches do like to get links to YouTube videos and things like that, but they tend to think that those things, that streaming video tends to make a player look faster and quicker. So at some point they're going to want an actual, not a YouTube video, but the actual videotape or DVD that you can send them. So that's important to remember too.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Ray.
Sure.
All right. We're going to swing on down now to our senior writer at large, John Wagner, who's here on Long Island, New York with me. John, this is something we talk about constantly in our coverage of the FCS, the Division I AA colleges, and especially how these kids get looked at, as well as the big schools. And of course, it leads into our conversations about how you can go anywhere to play. It's not just getting somewhere; it's what happens when you get there.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us, Ray. And actually, on that note, I kind of have a question about before they get there. We've seen in the news recently about the dealings with the NFL and college football trying to keep these less than scrupulous, shall we say, agents away from some of the kids.
Yeah.
Right. And what do you think, or do you think enough is being done as far as communicating to kids at the high school level before they even get to the college level, as far as preparing them for that environment so they don't get themselves in that situation? Or can there really be nothing done, or not that much done, or enough done, no matter how much you tell them at the high school level?
Well, I think the high school level is probably, they're just worried about getting to a college and getting on a college team. I don't think they've really gone through in their head. I mean, of course they're dreaming of playing for the pros probably, but I don't know that the agent thing, when they're a senior or maybe before, I don't know that that's really entered their mind yet. And so I don't know that there's much that can be done for high school kids for that sort of thing. Now, the high school kids, probably the thing that's in that ilk that's more of concern to them possibly is whether the high school coaches are following the NCAA regulations and recruiting them. But, of course, that's up to the schools to know what those rules are, and the schools are the ones who face the sanctions if, in fact, they violate those. So I think the high school kid is probably not going to be concerned about NFL agents until much later, and probably it's not an issue for them at this point. So I hope I understood and answered your question correctly there.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.